The celestial room lived up to its name. Crystal chandeliers scattered fractured light across marble floors. White tablecloths held gleaming silverware in precise formation. Soft, classical music floated beneath the murmur of expensive conversations. Maya Bennett moved between tables like water finding its path. Her white shirt stayed crisp despite the kitchen's heat. Her hands carried trays with the steadiness of practiced repetition. She'd learned to make herself small in spaces like this. The entrance doors swung open with unnecessary force. Richard Ashford entered like he owned the oxygen. Silver hair swept back from a tanned face, navy suit tailored to broadcast wealth. 3 executives trailed behind him, their laughter too loud for the room's elegance. "Table for 4, he announced, not asked. "Somewhere people can see us." The hostess guided them to the center table, Maya's section. She took a breath, lifted her order pad, and approached. "Good evening. Welcome to you." His finger snapped twice in her direction. "Water, no ice? And don't take forever." Maya's smile stayed professional. "Of course. I'll be right back with... Do you speak English properly?" His eyes traveled over her face with theatrical curiosity. "I need someone who can understand complex orders." His executives shifted in their seats. One studied the menu intently. Maya's voice didn't waver. "I'll get your water, sir." She turned toward the kitchen. Behind her, his voice carried across the dining room. "Diversity hires. You see what I mean, gentlemen. Standards matter." The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Maya kept walking. Her reflection passed across darkened windows, a ghost in white and black. Maya Bennett was 28 years old and tired in her bones. The celestial room was her 3rd job. Mornings belonged to a coffee shop near the financial district. Afternoons went to freelance paralegal work from her apartment. Evenings brought her here, carrying expensive food to people who never saw her face. She'd been invisible her entire life in different ways. The scholarship kid at Woodmont Prep, where classmates arrived in town cars. The only black intern at Morrison & Associates, where partners mixed her up with the receptionist. The server who watched white colleagues collect double her tips for identical work. But invisibility had advantages. People revealed themselves when they thought no one important was watching. Her apartment was a studio in a converted warehouse. Rent took most of her income. The rest went to her younger brother Marcus's college tuition at Howard University. Their parents would have wanted that, would have insisted on it. Maya kept their memory in leather-bound journals stacked beside her mattress. Her mother's handwriting filled every page. Business insights, moral lessons, observations about power and patience. Maya read them when sleep wouldn't come, which was often. She'd been working since 15. Foster care taught her that survival meant forward motion. Stop moving and the system swallows you whole. Tonight felt different, though. Heavier, like standing on ice that was beginning to crack. She'd woken from a dream about her mother, Grace Bennett, standing in sunlight, wearing her favorite emerald green dress, saying words Maya couldn't quite hear. Something about silence, something about waiting. Maya had dismissed it while rushing between jobs. Now walking back toward Ashford's table with 4 glasses of water balanced on her tray, the dream pressed against her consciousness like a warning. She set the waters down with careful precision. "1 before each man, ice-free as requested. Ready to order, or would you like a few?" Ashford leaned back in his chair. "Tell me something. How long have you worked here?" Maya kept her expression neutral. 6 months, sir. 6 months. And they still have you on the floor." He glanced at his executives. "That tells you something, doesn't it?" The youngest executive couldn't have been 30, stared at his menu hard enough to burn holes through it. "I'm happy to take your order whenever you're ready," Maya said. Ashford lifted his water glass, examined it against the chandelier light. "You know what I hate? Incompetence disguised as equality. Makes everyone uncomfortable." He tilted his wrist. The glass tipped forward in slow motion. Water cascaded across the white tablecloth, rushed toward the edge, and splashed directly onto Maya's shoes. Cold soaked through canvas, numbing her toes. Clumsy. Ashford's smile was surgical. This is why standards matter, gentlemen. Excellence isn't prejudice. It's preservation of quality. The dining room had gone completely silent. 50 people holding their breath. Maya looked down at her soaked shoes, looked at the spreading water stain, looked at Ashford's face, satisfied as a cat with a cornered mouse. Something inside her that had been bending for years finally snapped clean. She set down her tray with deliberate care, untied her black apron with steady hands, folded it into a precise square, and placed it on the table beside Ashford's menu. "Is there a problem?" His voice carried amusement. Maya met his eyes for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to see his certainty, long enough to memorize his face. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. "Excuse me," Ashford's voice rose. "Where do you think you're going?" Maya didn't respond, didn't look back, didn't hurry. The hostess stood frozen by her podium, other servers pressed against the kitchen doorframe. The manager emerged from his office, confusion written across his face. Maya pushed through the entrance doors. They closed behind her with a quiet click that somehow echoed like thunder. Inside, Ashford's laughter erupted. "Well, that answers that question, doesn't it?" Outside, Maya stood beneath the restaurant's golden awning. Rain had started falling, cold drops mixed with hot tears she refused to let fall completely. Her phone buzzed. The manager. She declined the call. Silence, her mother had always said, was the most powerful response to small men with loud voices. Maya walked through streets slicked with rain and neon reflections, her shoes squelched with every step. Her white shirt clung to her shoulders. She'd left her jacket in the employee locker and couldn't bring herself to go back. The city moved around her, taxis honking, couples sharing umbrellas, the distant wail of sirens. She existed in a bubble of silence that made everything feel muffled and far away. Her phone kept buzzing. Manager, co-workers, a number she didn't recognize. She silenced it completely. What had she done? 3 jobs down to 2. Rent due in 12 days. Marcus's tuition payment scheduled for next month. The practical part of her brain screamed that she'd made a catastrophic mistake. But beneath the panic lived something else. Something that felt almost like relief. She'd spent 13 years making herself smaller, swallowing insults, accepting less, telling herself that dignity was a luxury she couldn't afford. Tonight she'd chosen dignity anyway. Her apartment building appeared through the rain. 6 floors of converted warehouse, rent-controlled and crumbling. Home. Maya climbed stairs that smelled like cooking oil and old carpet, unlocked 3 separate locks on her door, stepped into her studio and finally let herself breathe. The journals sat in their usual place beside her mattress, 5 leather-bound books filled with her mother's handwriting. Maya hadn't opened them in months. Grief made them too heavy. Tonight she pulled out the middle volume, let it fall open randomly. Her mother's words stared back at her. "Silence isn't weakness, baby. Sometimes it's strategy. The people who underestimate you hand you power. They don't know they're giving. Collect it, save it, use it when they've forgotten you were even there." Maya's hands trembled. She turned pages, reading entries she'd skimmed before. Business deals, investment strategies, properties purchased under shell company names. One entry stopped her cold. Ashford Hospitality Group initial investment. 2-3. James says the fundamentals are weak, but the locations have potential. We'll see. Ashford. Maya's pulse kicked into her throat. She grabbed her laptop, fingers clumsy on the keyboard. Grace and James Bennett built their fortune in the spaces between things. Her mother started as a housekeeper in Boston's financial district. She cleaned offices at 4 in the morning and listened to conversations powerful people had when they thought only janitors could hear. She learned which companies were failing, which properties were underwater, which deals were about to collapse. Grace saved every penny, learned accounting from library books, started buying distressed properties at tax sales, turned them into rental income that compounded year after year. Maya's father came later, a financial analyst who fell in love with Grace's brilliant mind. Together they built Bennett Capital Holdings, a silent investment firm that bought stakes in struggling businesses and turned them profitable. They never sought recognition, never attended galas, never networked at country clubs. The people who need to be seen are insecure, her father used to say. Real power operates in silence. Maya grew up in a modest house in Dorchester. Public schools until her test scores earned prep school scholarships. Summer jobs instead of camps. Her parents wanted her to understand work, not inheritance. Then came the accident. Wet roads and a drunk driver. Maya was 15 years old when police arrived at her door. The legal battles started immediately. Distant relatives contested the will. Business partners claimed debts. Everything her parents built got frozen in probate courts. Maya went into foster care, bounced between 3 homes in 2 years, aged out at 18 with nothing but memories and a storage unit containing her mother's journals. She worked her way through community college, earned her paralegal certification, took whatever jobs paid bills. 3 years ago, a letter arrived from Morrison & Chen law firm. Her 25th birthday triggered release of documents from her parents' estate, trust accounts, investment portfolios, instructions for claiming what was hers. Maya had been too afraid to follow through, afraid of hope, afraid of disappointment, afraid that investigating would reveal her parents had left nothing after all. She'd filed the papers away and kept surviving. Now, staring at her laptop screen, she understood what a catastrophic mistake that had been. The Bennett Capital Holdings website was deliberately unremarkable. Simple design, minimal information, a contact form that went to the law firm. Maya dug deeper. Corporate filings, Secretary of State records, SEC documents. The numbers assembled themselves into something impossible. Bennett Capital Holdings owned controlling shares in 43 businesses, residential properties across 6 states, commercial real estate in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. Total assets estimated at $47 million. Maya's vision blurred. She blinked hard, read it again. 47 million. Her hands shook as she clicked through subsidiary companies, shell corporations with innocuous names. Bennett Properties LLC, Grace Investment Holdings, James Capital Group. Each one owned pieces of restaurants, hotels, retail spaces. Each one generated income that flowed into trust accounts bearing her name. She'd been working 3 jobs while sitting on a fortune. Then she found Ashford Hospitality Group in the investment portfolio. Her parents' firm had provided initial capital 22 years ago, loaned money for expansion in 2008, when banks wouldn't touch hospitality investments, restructured terms in 2012 and 2015. Bennett Capital Holdings was Ashford's primary lender. His empire existed because of her parents' money. Maya's throat tightened. She searched for recent communications. The email account lived buried in her university inbox. She'd set up forwarding years ago, but never checked the archive folder where automated messages went. Dozens of emails from Morrison & Chen, compliance notices, covenant violations, default warnings. The most recent was dated 2 weeks ago. Subject: final notice, Ashford Hospitality Group loan default. Maya clicked with hands that didn't feel like her. Own Ms. Bennett, this firm has provided numerous notices regarding Ashford Hospitality Group's violations of loan covenants established in 2015. These include failure to maintain required diversity ratios in leadership, falsification of financial statements, and ethical violations documented by employees. As trustee of Bennett Capital Holdings, we have exhausted remediation options. Unless violations are cured by November 30th, we will initiate foreclosure proceedings on all assets, securing the outstanding loan balance of $34 million. This is a courtesy final notice. Please contact our office if you wish to discuss alternatives. November 30th. That was in 3 days. Maya sat back, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Richard Ashford had built his empire on her parents' money. He'd violated every agreement they'd required. He'd defaulted on $34 million in loans, and tonight he'd mocked her, humiliated her, treated her like she was nothing. He had no idea who she was. Maya's phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Ashford Hospitality Group announces major IPO. CEO projects billion-dollar valuation. The article showed Richard Ashford in his navy suit, grinning beside a podium, claiming unprecedented growth, promising investors a golden opportunity. The IPO was scheduled for December 2nd, 3 days after the foreclosure deadline. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She grabbed her phone and called the number on the law firm's letterhead. A voice answered on the second ring. Morrison & Chen, Marcus Chen speaking. This is Maya Bennett, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. I need to know everything about Ashford. Hospitality Group, and I need to know it now, Marcus. Chen's office occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Boston. Maya arrived at 9 the next morning, wearing her mother's vintage blazer, emerald green, perfectly tailored, smelling faintly of the lavender sachets Grace Bennett always kept in closets. Marcus stood when she entered. 60 years old with silver temples and eyes that assessed everything. He'd been her parents' attorney for 3 decades, Maya. His voice carried relief and something else, approval. I wondered when you'd come. The conference room table held organized stacks of documents, financial statements, loan agreements, email chains printed and highlighted. Tell me everything, Maya said. Over 2 hours, Marcus walked her through the architecture of her inheritance. Her parents had designed it as a test and a gift. Assets held in trust until she turned 25, then released with minimal guidance, forcing her to discover her power rather than having it handed to her. Your mother believed wealth without wisdom was dangerous, Marcus explained. She wanted you to be ready, not driven by money but by purpose. Maya absorbed numbers that still felt unreal. 47 million in assets, controlling interests in 43 businesses, legal authority to restructure deals or call in loans. What about Ashford? She asked. Marcus's expression hardened. He's the worst kind of operator. Takes money, violates agreements, and assumes silence means permission. He pulled out a separate folder, thick with documentation. Ashford Hospitality Group had violated every major covenant in their loan agreement, required diversity benchmarks, ignored, financial transparency requirements, falsified, ethical conduct standards, trampled repeatedly. We've sent 18 notices over 3 years, Marcus said. He responds with excuses and promises, then continues exactly as before. Why didn't you foreclose earlier? We needed your authorization. You're the principal. We're just trustees. Marcus leaned forward. But Maya, there's a complication. He showed her the IPO announcement. If Ashford's company went public successfully, he'd raise enough capital to pay off the loan completely. Escape consequences. Emerge richer and more powerful than ever. We have 72 hours, Marcus said. After that, he's untouchable. Maya stared at Ashford's photograph in the business section. His confident smile, his tailored suit, his absolute certainty that he'd won. His annual investors' gala is this Saturday, Marcus continued. He's using it to court final IPO commitments. Every major investor will be there. An idea formed in Maya's mind. Dangerous and perfect. Can you get me a job serving at that gala? Marcus blinked. What? He humiliated me as a waitress. He thinks service workers are invisible. Maya's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I want to be invisible one last time. I want to watch him celebrate. And then I want to take everything. Marcus studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. Your mother would be proud, he said. Let me make some calls. The call came 18 hours later. Maya was halfway through her coffee shop shift when her phone buzzed. "Marcus's name on the screen. You're hired," he said. "Ashford's event company needs extra servers." "I have a contact. You start Saturday at 4 o'clock for setup." Maya's hand trembled around her coffee cup. "That's it?" "That's it." "But Maya," Marcus paused, "once we move forward, there's no going back. Foreclosure will destroy his company. Employees will lose jobs. Investors will lose money." "Are you certain?" Maya thought of water soaking her shoes. Ashford's mocking laughter. His certainty that people like her didn't matter. But she also thought of the compliance reports Marcus had shown her. Employees reporting harassment that was ignored. Minority staff members fired for complaining. Financial fraud that put retirement funds at risk. "He's not a victim," Maya said. "He's a predator who got comfortable." "Agreed. I'll have the foreclosure papers ready. We move Sunday morning, the day after his gala." Maya ended the call and returned to wiping down tables. 2 days. 48 hours until she walked back into Richard Ashford's world. This time he wouldn't even know she was there until it was too late. That evening she pulled out her mother's journals again. Read entries about patience and timing. About building power in silence and striking when the moment was perfect. One passage stopped her. "Justice delayed isn't justice denied, baby. Sometimes it's justice perfected. Let them think they've won. Let them celebrate. Then show them the truth." Maya closed the journal and opened her laptop. Researched Ashford's gala. Black tie event at the Harborview Hotel. 300 guests. Press coverage. The biggest night of his career. A news alert interrupted her research. Breaking: Ashford Hospitality Group IPO oversubscribed. Investors report record demand. Article quoted financial analysts predicting Ashford would become Boston's newest billionaire. His photograph showed him shaking hands with the mayor. Living proof that hard work and vision paid off. Maya's stomach twisted. What if she was wrong? What if exposing him made her the villain? Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Maya Bennett?" A woman's voice. Young, nervous, "Yes? My name is Jennifer Acosta. I worked at Ashford Hospitality until 3 months ago. I saw the news about his IPO and The woman's voice cracked. "I needed to tell someone what he did." Maya sat forward. "Tell me." Jennifer's story spilled out. Sexual harassment. Racist comments disguised as jokes. A hostile work environment that drove her to therapy. When she reported it, HR buried her complaint. Ashford personally called her into his office and suggested she'd misunderstood his mentorship. She quit rather than endure another day. "There are others," Jennifer said. "So many others. But everyone's afraid. He destroys people who speak up. I couldn't stay silent while he gets celebrated as some business genius." Maya's grip tightened on her phone. "Jennifer, would you be willing to document what happened?" Officially, silence. Then, "If it would actually matter, yes." "It will matter," Maya promised. "I'll make sure it matters." She ended the call and immediately contacted Marcus. Told him about Jennifer. Asked him to find other former employees willing to make statements. "We're building a case now," Marcus said. "Legal and moral." Saturday morning arrived with cold rain. Maya stood in her apartment wearing black pants and a white shirt. Server uniform, armor. She tucked her mother's journals into her bag. Checked her phone one last time. Marcus had sent a message. 12 former employees ready to provide statements. Documentation is devastating. He's finished. Maya took a breath. Looked at her reflection in the small mirror by her door. Grace Bennett's daughter stared back. Ready. The Harborview Hotel ballroom glittered like a fever dream. Ice sculptures. Champagne towers. A string quartet playing near floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Boston Harbor. 300 guests in designer clothes networking beneath crystal chandeliers. Maya stood in the service corridor, with 19 other servers. The event manager, a thin woman with a clipboard, reviewed assignments in a clipped voice. You're invisible tonight. Don't speak unless spoken to. Keep trays moving. Don't make eye contact with guests. Maya nodded with the others. Invisible, exactly where she needed to be. She'd arrived at 4 for setup. Spent 2 hours polishing glassware and folding napkins. No one questioned her presence. No one looked twice. Now the gala was beginning. Guests arrived in town cars. Richard Ashford held court near the entrance, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya's annual rent. His silver hair caught the light. His smile was practiced and perfect. Maya picked up a tray of champagne flutes, moved into the ballroom, became invisible. She drifted between conversations. Investors discussing Ashford's genius, business reporters taking notes, politicians praising his commitment to Boston's economy. No one saw her. No one ever did. Ashford's laugh carried across the room. Maya turned and watched him gesture expansively to a semicircle of admirers, telling a story about building his empire from nothing, using her parents' money. Maya's hands tightened on the tray. She forced them to relax. Not yet. A guest took champagne without looking at her face. Another barely nodded. A third reached past her like she was furniture. For a moment doubt crept in. Was this worth it? Ashford had won. Everyone believed his story. Tomorrow he'd be a billionaire and she'd still be invisible. Then she heard his voice rise above the crowd. The problem with this country is we've confused equality with excellence. I built this company on merit, not quotas. Applause rippled through his audience. Maya set down her empty tray, walked back to the service corridor, found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. Marcus had sent final confirmation. Foreclosure papers filed. Takes effect 12:01 a.m. Sunday. Everything is ready. Maya closed her eyes, felt her mother's presence like sunlight. Let them celebrate. Then show them the truth. The gala reached its peak at 9 o'clock. Ashford took the stage to thunderous applause. Day's spotlight found him. He gripped the podium with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. 25 years ago, I had a vision, he began. Maya stood against the back wall with other servers. Watching, listening, Ashford's speech painted himself as a self-made success. Risk-taker, visionary, job creator. He thanked investors for believing in him. Promised the IPO would reward their faith. He never mentioned her parents. Never acknowledged the loans that funded every expansion. Never admitted that his empire existed because Grace and James Bennett took a chance on him. The audience ate it up. Standing ovation. Camera flashes. Champagne toasts. Maya slipped out of the ballroom, found the service elevator, rode to the rooftop terrace that overlooked the harbor. Cold air bit through her white shirt. She stood at the railing watching boats move across dark water. Her phone buzzed. Marcus calling. Where are you? He asked, getting air. I'm fine. The papers are filed. At midnight, we legally own controlling interest in his company. By Monday morning, every news outlet will have the story. Maya watched the city lights reflect off the water. What happens to the employees? We'll restructure. Install new leadership. Keep the company operating. But Ashford himself? Has done. Good. Marcus hesitated. Maya, Jennifer Acosta called me. She and 8 other former employees want to be there tomorrow when the news breaks. They want to speak to reporters. Are you comfortable with that? Maya thought of Jennifer's voice on the phone, the relief of finally being heard, more than comfortable. Make it happen. She ended the call and pulled out her mother's journal. The emerald green blazer lay across a bench where she'd left it. She traced the fabric with careful fingers. I hope I'm doing this right, she whispered to the empty air. The rooftop door opened. A figure stepped out. Maya turned. Her heart stopped. Richard Ashford stood 20 feet away, phone pressed to his ear. He hadn't seen her yet. Maya froze, invisible again. Don't care what the lawyers say, Ashford was saying. The IPO goes through and we're untouchable. Every covenant violation gets buried. Every complaint gets settled into silence. He laughed. Cold and certain, trust me. By Monday, I'll have enough capital to tell Bennett Capital to go to hell. They've been threatening foreclosure for years. They won't do anything. Maya's pulse hammered. She stayed absolutely still. Ashford ended his call, turned, finally saw her. You. He frowned. Aren't you supposed to be working? Maya met his eyes. Yes, sir. Just needed air. Well, get back inside. I'm not paying for breaks. He walked past her toward the door, paused, looked back. Don't I know you from somewhere? Maya's expression stayed neutral. I don't think so, sir. Ashford shrugged. All you servers look the same anyway. He disappeared inside. Maya stood alone on the rooftop. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage that had crystallized into diamond-hard purpose. Sunday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine. Maya stood outside the Harborview Hotel at 11 o'clock. The press conference was scheduled for noon. Marcus had arranged everything. Reporters were already gathering. Camera crews setting up. Producers checking equipment. Jennifer Acosta arrived first, late 20s, wearing a navy dress and carrying herself like someone preparing for battle. 8 others followed. Former Ashford employees ready to speak truth. Marcus appeared with his legal team. He handed Maya a folder containing every document they'd need. Ready? He asked. Maya looked at her reflection in the hotel's glass doors. She'd worn her mother's emerald green blazer. Her father's watch. Armor made of memory. Ready. At noon they entered the hotel's conference room. 50 reporters stood as they walked to the podium. Camera shutters clicked like mechanical rain. Maya stepped to the microphone. Her heart was a drum, but her voice came out steady. My name is Maya Bennett. I'm the principal owner of Bennett Capital Holdings. I'm here to discuss Ashford Hospitality Group. She saw confusion ripple through the crowd. Reporters checking notes, whispering to each other. 22 years ago, my parents provided initial capital to Richard Ashford. To over 2 decades, they loaned $34 million to fund his expansion. This morning at 12:01 a.m., due to repeated covenant violations and loan defaults, Bennett Capital foreclosed on all assets securing that debt. The room erupted. Questions shouted. Cameras surging forward. Maya raised her hand. Silence fell. As of this morning, Bennett Capital Holdings owns controlling interest in Ashford Hospitality Group. Mr. Ashford no longer has operational authority over the company he claims to have built. She paused. Let that sink in. Mr. Ashford violated every ethical standard required by our loan agreement. He falsified financial statements. He ignored mandated diversity requirements. He created hostile work environments documented by dozens of employees. Marcus stepped forward. Distributed packets to reporters. You'll find comprehensive documentation here. Financial fraud. Harassment complaints buried by HR. Discrimination lawsuit settled with non-disclosure agreements. The man celebrated as a business genius is actually a fraud who built his empire on other people's money and other people's silence. A reporter shouted, "Where is Richard Ashford?" Maya smiled. Cold and precise. I imagine he's discovering what it feels like to lose everything in a single moment. The hotel suite door behind them burst open. Ashford stormed in, flanked by 2 lawyers. His face was red, his perfect hair disheveled. He looked nothing like the confident CEO from last night. This is slander, he shouted. I'm calling the SEC. I'm suing everyone in this room. Maya turned to face him. Let him see her fully for the first time. Recognition dawned slowly. His eyes widened. You're the waitress, from the Celestial Room. I'm Grace Bennett's daughter, Maya said quietly. You built your empire on my parents' money. You mocked me while standing on their investment. You treated me like I was nothing. Ashford's mouth opened, closed. No words came. Jennifer Acosta stepped forward. He sexually harassed me for 8 months. When I reported it, I was fired. Another woman joined her. He called me racial slurs, called it mentorship. One by one, 9 former employees approached the microphone, told their stories. Cameras captured every word. Ashford stood frozen, watching his empire collapse in real time. Maya's voice cut through the chaos. "Excellence isn't prejudice, Mr. Ashford. Those were your words. Let me tell you what excellence actually looks like." She opened her mother's journal. "Read aloud. Real power operates in silence. The people who need to be seen are insecure. Build empires that serve communities, not egos. And never mistake cruelty for strength." Maya closed the journal, met Ashford's eyes one final time. "You're finished. Not because of revenge, because of justice." The press conference ended at 1 o'clock. Reporters scattered to file stories. Within hours, every news outlet carried the same headline: "Billionaire CEO exposed as fraud. Empire built on borrowed money and buried complaints." Maya sat in Marcus's office that evening, exhausted and hollow. "The IPO is cancelled," Marcus reported. "Investors are withdrawing. Ashford's personal assets are frozen pending investigation. The SEC has opened a formal inquiry." Maya nodded, felt nothing but tired. "What about the employees? The ones who did nothing wrong?" "We're restructuring under new leadership. No one loses their job unless they participated in misconduct. The company will continue operating." Marcus poured her water in a crystal glass. "You did the right thing." Maya wasn't sure what the right thing felt like. She'd imagined satisfaction, victory. Instead, she just felt empty. Her phone buzzed. Jennifer Acosta had texted, "Thank you. You gave us our voices back." 8 other messages followed, former employees thanking her. Crying with relief, finally feeling heard, Maya's eyes burned. Maybe this was what justice felt like. Not triumph, but closure. She took a car service back to her apartment, climbed 6 flights of stairs, unlocked 3 locks. Inside, her studio looked exactly the same, small and cramped and home. She set her mother's journals on the table, ran her fingers across the leather covers. "I hope I made you proud," she whispered. The next morning, Maya woke to her phone ringing continuously. Marcus, news outlets. Interview requests. She ignored them all. Put on running clothes, went outside into cold November air. Her feet carried her to the cemetery where her parents rested. She hadn't visited in months. Guilt and grief made it too hard. Now she stood before their shared headstone. Grace and James Bennett, beloved parents. Taken too soon. Maya knelt in damp grass, told them everything. The restaurant, the humiliation, the discovery, the foreclosure. "I was invisible for so long," she said, "but you taught me that invisibility is power when you choose it." Wind rustled through bare trees. Sunlight broke through clouds. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing exactly, but possibility. She'd spent 13 years surviving. Maybe it was time to start building. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the Bennett Capital Holdings office. Marcus had helped her claim her inheritance fully. The $47 million in assets, the controlling interests, the power her parents had built in silence. She'd made her first decision that morning. Bennett Capital would establish a fund for workers who experienced harassment or discrimination, legal support, financial assistance, protection for people who needed to speak truth. Jennifer Acosta would run it. Maya had offered her the position yesterday. Jennifer had cried and said yes. Maya walked to the window, looked down at Boston stretching in every direction. Somewhere in this city, Richard Ashford was facing federal charges. His name was destroyed, his empire dismantled. She felt no joy in his fall, only quiet certainty that some falls were necessary. Her mother's journal lay open on her desk. The final entry, written days before the accident: "My darling Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But everything I built lives in you. Not the money, that's just a tool. The real inheritance is knowing your worth doesn't come from what others see. It comes from what you know in your bones. Be invisible when it serves you. Be seen when it matters. Build power in silence. Use it for justice. And never let anyone make you small. The world will try. Stand anyway. Love, Mama." Maya traced her mother's handwriting with gentle fingers. Through the window, afternoon sun painted the city gold. She thought of water soaking her shoes, Ashford's mocking laughter. The moment she chose to walk away instead of shrinking, silence had been her strategy. Patience had been her weapon. Invisibility had been her power. Now she stood in the light, visible and strong, holding everything her parents had built and transforming it into something that served others. Richard Ashford had called her nothing. But nothing had been gathering force for years. Nothing had become something he never saw coming, and in the end, nothing had changed everything.